Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Trent. I tried a new little thing here with kind of a bumper video in the beginning to say the stream was starting to try to avoid some of those awkward intros where I don't know if I'm actually streaming yet, but I think I am now. So I'm going to try to do that perhaps more in the future just to get a little, make the intro a little cleaner. But thanks for joining me, everyone. If you're returning from a previous stream, thanks for coming back. If it's your first time, welcome. I think I see we have some people in the chat here. Pisk6 and Breezer, thanks for joining. CJJ Seidel from Germany, thanks. And Teek, great to have you here. Always great to see your name, Teek, there. So today, I kind of have been alternating between more advanced topics and more basic topics, or more fundamental topics, I should say. So I thought today our main subject would be kind of an introduction to masks. Funnily enough, I did the advanced masks a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month or so ago. And I thought I never really did masks 101 on stream, so I thought I'd cover that today. For those who haven't been here before, usually I kind of go over a main topic for about 30 minutes or so. And at the end of the stream, I'll review some of the questions I got on my videos throughout the week. And of course, if you have any questions throughout the stream, feel free to post them there. If they're on the main topic, I can answer it. If it's kind of way off topic, I'll wait until after the main subject to answer them. So you may have to remind me if I miss it. Hi, Vela. Hi, Bill. Sekmatera, good to see you. Codigo Muville, hello. Hi, Dwight. You're on time. Great. Good to hear it. So today's topic is masks, and they behave kind of a little bit differently in Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer, depending on how you use them, and we'll talk about both those cases. And I guess I'll show a little bit of Publisher at the end too. I didn't really prepare anything for Publisher, but it works kind of the same as Affinity Designer for the most part. But the really cool thing about this topic is it's kind of like last week, where it's one of these things, if you learn it in one program, you kind of know it in everything. So last week we talked about blend modes, and I used the Affinity programs to show them, but that subject is used in everything from Photoshop to Illustrator to Procreate, even beyond photo editing tools to video tools. So things like Premiere and DaVinci Resolve use blend modes. And you can say the same exact thing about masks. Today we're just learning how it kind of works in the Affinity programs, but this stuff is in everything really. It's in Procreate, Photoshop, Illustrator, I'm sure, and even when you do like video, you're going to have masking in there as well. Hello, everyone. Hi, Irene. Hi, IH. Good to see you again. Vela's saying you guys in Texas are without power. I heard there's a huge storm in Houston or something recently, so I hope you weren't too affected by that. So let's move on to our topic here. So I'll start with Affinity Photo, and let me open up a file here. So as usual, the question is, what do masks do? And on a basic level, masks are going to suppress or hide part of our image. But let me show you the way kind of a lot of us do this when we first start working with software. Let me just add a background layer that's not, because it's kind of transparent, it's kind of hard to figure out. Kind of hard to see. Let me just add a green background. Okay, so that'll be our, I'll make it blue so it doesn't hurt your eyes so much. Maybe that's a little bit better. Okay. So kind of, the way a lot of us start when we first start using these programs is to say, okay, I have this car. Maybe I want to erase the background for this car. So what do? Well, we look at our tools here, and we have an eraser brush somewhere. Can't see it. Here it is. Erase brush tool. Okay, so I click on this, and then, maybe I think I'm really smart, so I select my car, and I do all this. And then maybe I'll like invert the selection here. So I selected my car. Now I want to get rid of the background. So, right now if I use my eraser, I'm not on the right layer. I have to unlock my layer here. I'm erasing my car. And you can see I'm erasing it just because the background is blue. Now, if I wanted to erase the background, I would invert my selection. So right now my selection is the car. I'll say select, and there should be an invert selection somewhere here. Invert pixel selection. Okay, so now I start erasing my car, and I make my brush really big, and I start erasing the background. And you can see I kind of like made some mistakes right off the bat. Like, okay, I erased a little bit too much there. Well, how do I undo this part that I erased? Well, I guess I have to do Control Z or something and try again better next time. And it's really kind of awkward to use the erase tool this way. It's what we call a destructive process. And by destructive, I mean once you erase the pixel part of your image, let me just undo the selection. I'll hide the background so you can see the transparency there. I think it's kind of clear that, you know, once you erase stuff, it's essentially gone forever. The only way you can really get it back is I can do Control Z and start getting it back there. So I'll do that. I'll just delete that. I don't think we need that background there. But, you know, it's once you start doing lots of things, that Control Z option, it's not an option anymore because you're so far down in operations. And if you save and reopen the file, the stuff you erased in your image is going to be gone forever. And to get around this problem, we use something called masks. Now, you may say, well, should I never use the eraser brush? Like, when do we actually use the eraser? I think there are some situations to use the eraser. Probably digital painting would be one, when you're kind of doing brush strokes and maybe you want to cut away some of your brush strokes. It's kind of tedious to use masks in that situation. But for the most part, I think when you're working with photos, you want to think in terms of masks, and that's what we'll look at now. So on a basic level, masks they're in a bunch of different parts of Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer. We'll look at where they are. There's a bunch of different ways to use them. But the basic way to use them is to click this button here, which is to create a mask. So I have my layer here, my background, and I'll use my zoom tool here. So yeah, this is the mask button, not to be confused with the adjustment layer button next to it. So if I click on that, I'll click mask layer. And by default, nothing really happens. That the typical mask is just going to have no effect. And what you have to know about masks is the fundamental thing to understand is that we paint on them in black and white and grayscale. And white is going to reveal our image and black is going to hide parts of it. So let me show you exactly what that means. Now I'm going to alt click on my mask here. That'll show me what my mask looks like. So right now it's all white. So I'll alt click on it again. You can see my image here. I'm going to select my paintbrush and I'll select a brush. Just a normal round brush. Now to use my mask, I have to have my mask selected here. And I'm going to select just a very black color. So it's black right here. And you can see as I paint on my image, I can actually start seeing through it here. Okay. So I'm masking out part of my image. And what's happening, if I alt click on my mask, I can see what it looks like. This is what I've been painting on my mask. So the black part is making it transparent and the white part is solid. Okay. Hi, Softball by Fat. Good to see you here. Hi, yo, Michael Ray from Waco, Texas. Great to see you. So Vela, reading your comment, you have a generator, but didn't have internet for a while. Sounds like hopefully things are back to normal for you. So far, I haven't lost power this year, but there was a storm here in New England a couple of years ago where lost power for a couple of days. Definitely was not fun. So I can understand that situation. So I'm erasing here. And one of the tricky things about masks that people get confused about when they first start is they feel like they can't see what's actually happening. Because if this is my mask here, and it's kind of like, okay, this is my mask, but I'm looking at my image here and I'm erasing things. How do I really know what's happening? And the answer is you just kind of get a little bit practice as it goes. You kind of know that you're on your mask layer. You're going to be erasing stuff. And it's just something that comes the more you use it, you get more comfortable with it. Now, the really cool thing, unlike the eraser I showed you before, is if I select white for my color, so my brush is now white here, I can actually paint back in. So I can paint my image back in here. So it was never actually destroyed. And if you go back to my mask, if I paint white, I can paint just looking at my mask if I want to. That's perfectly fine. If you prefer that way. Sometimes that's easier. We'll look at some cases later on where you will want to look at your mask like this. But I can actually just undo what I did before. So if I do something like, say, I kind of select out the edge here. Let's say I make a really bad selection. Let's say I just do something really rough. The nice thing about masks is you can do something rough to begin with, and then later on you can fix it. So let's say I want to get my mask back in there. this isn't the best way to mask out this car, but let's just say it's what you want to do. I could go back in later, and I could fill in the edge of my car here. And then I could go and I could like clean it back up. So the mask, I can very easily go back and forth. And again, this isn't necessarily the way I would do, you know, you could do this for certain like smaller assets or something like that. Using the selection brush is a much easier way to do this particular one here. If I don't like a mask, I can just delete it. But I'll add another mask here. Now, this would be a good, let me add that green pixel layer below it again so you can see something. This will make it clearer. Oops. Now, as I said, when we paint black on the mask, it's going to make it transparent. So this is making my image transparent. When we do levels of gray, it's going to be some level of transparency. Okay, so if I do 50% gray, it's going to be partially transparent here. Okay, if I do full black, it's going to be fully transparent. And, you know, the level of how dark it is determines how transparent your mask is going to be. So let's look at our mask. I'm alt-clicking on my mask here to show it. And you can see this is the lighter gray part here is semi-transparent when I actually look at my image here. And this is really useful a lot of times for like feathering the edge of something. So you want to have most of your, say you want to completely make your car transparent and then you want to make the edge semi-transparent. You could use maybe a gray effect on the edge there. So let me actually like do a selection and mask it out here. So when you select something, I'm using the selection brush here, so it's this tool here. And again, kind of like I can't remember what the topic was a couple weeks ago, but like selecting things is a big part of getting a good mask to begin with. But like I said, if you with a mask, you can go and you can tweak your selection later on. So let me select the mask here. Let me select the car. And I'm just going to get like some type of basic selection here. I don't know how good it'll be. But when I have a selection like this, what I can do is I can then go and I can press the mask layer button here. So if I click mask layer, it automatically creates the mask for me. So this is what it actually did. And then you can go backwards later and you can clean it up if you want. But I think this one, you know, it's fine for now. Now there's a couple different things you can do with the mask. Let's see. Hi Julie, good to see you. So Control D undoes your selection. So let's say you got a basic selection like this and you wanted to fix it up. Well, you could go in here and you can see, you know, this part didn't fully come in. So I'm on my mask layer. So I would select white. And I could go with my brush. And maybe in this case, you'd kind of do a solid brush. And if the edge is too sharp, you could go and you could use a soft brush to clean it up if you wanted. But I'll just keep it as a solid brush. But you can go and you can clean it up parts of it here. So for example, this part here, I can toggle my mask on and off to see how good it did a job. So that's what it normally looks like. Hi Fior, good to see you. And the really key part here is just the ability to fix your mistakes or tidy things up a bit. Okay. Now, when you do the masks, they don't have to be nested in here. So you could actually take the mask and you could move it at the top level. And in this case, it's going to have the same effect. I can toggle on and off. Let's say I had another image here. Let's say I had some type of, I don't know. Let's do a car logo. What type of car is this? You know, if I had a car logo here or something. If this mask was above it, or this was below it. So the mask is above. When I turn this mask on, it's affecting everything. So this car logo is also getting cut off. But if I just wanted the mask to affect the background, the car, I can take the mask and I can put it in the car like this. So now that mask is just affecting the car, and it's not affecting my logo. I could also group the car and the mask, so I could take the mask out here, and I could group them like that. And that would also limit the effect of the mask there. So let's look at another example, a little more interesting example, I think. So here I have this image of a bird, and let's say I want to just select this bird, and maybe I want to like add some effects that just apply to this bird here. So again, this is a image. It's an image, not pixel layer, it's an image. Let's make a selection of the bird, and I'll show you some ways that the mask can be used for other effects that we may want to apply to this image. So let's make a basic selection of our bird here. So I'll just select it. And once again, maybe, you know, the selection tool is kind of 90% of getting a good mask. So I'll just select it here. Let's get his leg too. So when you do the selection, if you hold Alt, that will undo part of a selection. So if I select too much here, if I hold Alt and select, that will kind of go backwards and erase it. So that's useful. I'll select that. I saw something that needed some work, so in here. Select that. I think it's a pretty good selection for the most part. So what I can do now is, and this is kind of beyond the scope of this, but I can say refine here. So I can make a mask right away, or I can say refine. And I'll kind of tidy it up a little. So you can see the red area is outside of my selection. I'm trying to move it without affecting it here. And I won't go over this whole thing, but the summary is that you can kind of fine-tune your selections here. I have a video on this, but the main thing is the output. I can make the output a selection, or I can make it a mask. So I'm going to make the output a mask of this selection I made. So I'll say apply. And we've masked out the bird there. Okay, so if I toggle this on and off, we have that mask. So one of the interesting things is, well, I thought of an idea for this image. What if I wanted to make it black and white background, but I wanted to make the bird really like very colorful? So I wanted to make the bird very bright blue, and I wanted to make the background black and white to kind of add this sense of contrast. Well, let's start doing that. So the first thing we can do is we can make the whole image black and white. So we can do an HSL adjustment for that. So HSL adjustments are these down here. So let's click that. I'll say HSL. And as we said a couple weeks ago, if you were on that stream about black and white and colorizing things, there's a ton of different ways to make something black and white. I'm just going to desaturate the whole image. So let's just desaturate it like that. So I'll call this, I don't know, black and white. Hi, Brian. Just reading your comment. No problem about the first 15 minutes. So I made this image black and white. So I just want the black and white to affect the background. Well, we have a mask we can use for that. And I can apply a mask to an adjustment in the Affinity programs, just like I can apply it to anything else. So I'll turn on the mask and I'll apply it to the adjustment here. Now you can see this actually did the opposite of what we wanted. It made our bird black and white and the background color. And the reason it did that is because, well, you can see the adjustment is having a black and white effect. Only the areas in white are allowing that effect to happen. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to invert the mask. And the way we can invert a mask is Control-I. So I'm going to say Control-I. And that does the opposite of it. So now if I go back here, now my bird is actually in color. And the background is black and white. So really all we did there was we inverted the mask. So again, that's Control-I will invert the mask. So I'm just pressing Control-I there. And that's what we want here. So that gives us, so that's a way of isolating our adjustment to just a certain area, okay? So quite useful, I use that a lot. Now, one thing about adjustments is you can actually write on them directly. They act as a mask. So if let me take this off for a second. Let's add another adjustment. And I'll make this another black and white. So the mask, the adjustment itself, you can paint on. So if I select a brush, I can actually paint on my, let's see, is that, yeah, it's color. I can paint on the adjustment itself to have a masking effect like that. I don't like that though, because it seems a little less flexible than the adding a mask to it. It seems like you can't quite do as many things to this as you can with this one. Like, I don't know, I guess I can view it, but I just find it a little awkward because to move around and things. So I don't do things that way. If I want to add a mask to a adjustment layer, I just make it as a child like that. So another thing we can do is we can make our bird more vibrant. So I'll do that. Euconic, I'm reading your comment. Is there any way to change the color of the mask from brown to gray? So do you mean like the visualization when we have this? Is there a way to do different types of black and white? Like if you want to do different colors, is there a way? Or I'm just trying to understand your question a little bit more. If you can just elaborate, I'll try to answer it. So let's add a vibrance adjustment to this bird. That's one of my favorite ones. So I'll do an adjustment here, vibrance. And let's crank him up. So as you can see, it's affecting everything, right? I'll do saturation. Let me turn off this black and white for a bit. So you can see this vibrance adjustment. It affected the whole image. So what I can do is I can take this out here. And I can apply the mask to just the adjustment. So if I can copy the mask and paste it. So Control C, Control V. So I have two masks. I'll apply this to the vibrance adjustment. And it seems to me like it's having the opposite effect that I want it to. So I'll do Control I. And now that vibrance adjustment is just affecting my bird. Okay. So this is before, after, before, after. So I'm reading your comments. Know the actual color when masking. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's possible. Like if you can change this. Let me add a mask. Let me try something. I've never tried like. Yeah, so I'm actually I'll show you exactly this right now. So one thing you can do, so you're saying you're masking a dog and the edge is tinting. So you can see the same exact thing happening with this bird here, right? So the edge of the bird is kind of green because it's picking up some light from, well, I mean, the image has green in it. That's why. When the photograph was taken, it was picking up light from the background and all that. So a fix we can do is I can add a pixel layer here. So I can add, let's say, add a pixel layer. And I'll just call it like color correction. Now what I want to do is I want to get rid of this green here. I can do a couple different things for that. Let's say I just want to make it, see you later Teak, thanks for joining. Enjoy your meeting. So let's say I want to make this green, let's say I just want to desaturate it, right? Well, I can take this color correction layer I just had, and let's make it, say, a saturation adjustment. So now if I, choose white or some level of gray, let me turn off all these other ones so you can see what happens. I can desaturate the edge of my, oh, I don't know what happened. My cursor just jumped across the screen. So I can actually desaturate around the edges of my bird to get it to blend in some more here. So I can desaturate this part, I can keep it whiter, and I can get rid of that green. Now the obvious thing here as you're looking at it is, well, you're getting rid of the background also. So of course, the way we solve that is we can use a mask. So I'll turn these on, and I already have these masks here that are made. I can just copy the one I want. So basically the one I want is the one that's going to allow the part on the bird. So let me copy this, Control C, Control V, and I'll apply it to my color correction layer. And you can see now that color correction, before it was doing that, but when I apply the mask, now it's limited to this area here on the bird. And I could probably do like a different adjustment. Maybe instead of saturation, maybe I want to do hue. So maybe I'll choose blue. Maybe I want to make the edge of the bird bluer. There's a little green there. I could make that blue. So with this color correction layer, what I'm doing is I have a hue blend mode. So what this layer looks like in isolation is that. This is what I've been doing. I've been painting this blue on there. And then because it's a blend mode, it's adding it to the layer below it. And I'm just masking it out so it's limited to the area of the bird. Okay. And so this is before, after. So before, after. Maybe I want to get rid of the green down here. I don't want any hue, so I'll do green. Or gray, rather. And it makes it look like that. If I wanted to go really crazy, I could make like a red bird. So, you know, that's a thing we could do too, but, you know, that's a little extreme. We're just kind of touching up a photo here. So, Yukoniko, hope that answers your question. So, yeah, so like with the bird, with your dog's fur in that case, you could create a mask of the fur and then just touch up the edges using an adjustment, either a hue, if it's like a brown dog, your adjustment, you could add brown here, or you could just desaturate it with gray or something like that. So that's kind of the essentials of how masks work on a 101 level, like kind of that's the basic level, I would say. If you right click on this mask here, you have these other adjustments, and I have some videos and a live stream from a couple weeks ago on this. I called it advanced masks, I believe. So if you want to know how those work, you can watch that live stream. I go into detail on all of these, and I have videos on each of these individual ones. So this is kind of the more advanced things, but I wouldn't worry about this stuff until you understand kind of the basics of how it goes here. So this is kind of the basics of masking, and we've been using raster images and photos. So the question then becomes, all right, can we do this with vectors, and how does this work in Affinity Designer? So I'll move on to Affinity Designer now. So let me know if you have any questions so far, if anything's kind of not making sense. Hopefully we don't go too fast over anything. So I'll go to Affinity Designer, and let me open up a file. So in Affinity Designer, you can actually do what I just showed you in Affinity Photo. You can mask out raster images by painting on a mask with black or white or gray. And here I have an image, and let me close this assets panel. Here I have an image, and the thing about Affinity Designer, is that if you want to do what we just looked at using a paintbrush and painting out masks, you need to go to the pixel persona. So that's this option up here. So the pixel persona, these are the raster-based operations in Affinity Designer. These are the things for editing images itself. So I'll click on that, and it basically works just like we looked at before. I can say, so I'll select an apple. I can do so here. I'll select my apple, and then I can click my mask button here, mask layer, and I've masked out my apple. And everything basically works like we talked about before. If I alt-click on the mask, I can see the mask. If I Control-D, I can select a paintbrush here. I can choose to paint things back in if I like. I have Protect Alpha on. Let me turn that off. And I can paint stuff back in. All that good stuff that we saw in Affinity Photo. And like I said, I can use gray to partially paint things in. So this is a really nice feature because a lot of vector programs, they don't have as many raster operations as Affinity Designer. So I like the fact that you can just go and quickly touch something up, touch an image up in Affinity Designer if you want to. And that's a very useful thing. Now in the designer persona, there's another concept. Masking works a little bit differently. So let's look at that idea here. So let me open up another file with vectors in it. So let's say we want to use a vector to mask out a shape here. So I have my basic shape. Let's say it's a rectangle. And let's say I want to use my circle to mask it out, okay? So what I can do is I can take the ellipse here, let me move it over here. Let me move it to the front. And what I can do is I can actually create a vector-based mask. So I can take this, I can drag it over the name rectangle. Actually, let me go backwards. I did that backwards. I drag over the image rectangle. Sorry, I get that mixed up sometimes. I'll talk about what I just did in a second. But what I can do is drag over the image here, let go, and now I've masked out my vector here. And I can move, I have my ellipse, I can move it around independently to mask out different areas of my shape. Okay, so this is kind of the basic vector masking method in Affinity Designer. Let me undo that again. So just to redo what I did, I took my shape that I want to serve as the mask, drag it over the image, and let go. And when I take my rectangle, I can drag it around and it'll preserve where that mask is. You can also do something called lock children. So if you do lock children, the mask will stay in place, but I'm moving the mask around. I'm moving the square around, but the mask is staying in place. But usually I don't do that too much. So I'll just go back here, lock children. Now, let me put a title on this so it's clear what's happening. So let's call this mask. So the thing about masking is it often gets confused with clipping layers, okay? So mask and clipping. All right, so when I mask something, you can see what happens here. I take it, I drag it over the image of the layer, and I mask it out like that. When you clip something, I take the ellipse here, I drag it over the name, and it's going to appear inside my shape here. So they're two different things that are they're almost related in a way. So you can see this is my mask here. So this is the circle is actually masking out the rectangle. I can only see parts of the rectangle that the circle is allowing. In this one, this is the clipping method. The ellipse is inside the rectangle. Okay, so it's kind of it's a difference that a lot of times people, when they drag stuff to either try to do a mask or try to do clipping, they kind of get the opposite of what they wanted. So that's something to just keep in mind. I don't do masking too much, but some people do it a lot. I do clipping like all the time. Like this is so common for me to do. And it's really easy in Affinity Designer to do it. So I would just keep an eye on like the difference between these two operations. Now let's look at a more complex vector here. So again, it's going to be quite similar to what I showed you before. Let's say I have this shark image here. It's a pretty cool vector. Like if I expand it, you can see it is just a vector here, just all sorts of curves and things. And if I want to mask it out, let's say I just want to show the head like in a circular little frame or something. I can take the ellipse. I should probably put it over first. You don't have to, but it's more clear if you do that. So I'll put it over. Then I'll drag it over the image, I'll let go, and now I have just a partial view of my vector image here. And if I want, I can move around the mask. Maybe I just want to show the fin. I can do all sorts of things. Just be careful when you look at this one. It's kind of confusing because all these things are white here, but you can see here it's the mask with the icon there. So you can kind of change it to whatever you want to be. If you have a vector and you don't want to do the whole thing, you just want to show part of it, you can use another vector to clip into it. We can also do something called vector crop. And that's kind of like a quick way of just like cropping a vector. So the vector crop tool is this tool here. So if I click on this, it's essentially the same as a rectangular kind of cropping. So I can drag the edges and just show part of my vector if I would like. So it's I'd say it's a form of masking. And it's just kind of a quicker way of like getting a rectangular mask if you like. So you can drag it, do all these different things to it. And it's just another method for masking there. Now let me look at Affinity Publisher. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I think masking in Affinity Publisher is basically the same as Affinity Designer that we just saw. File new. I'll just create some new thing there. And it's basically going to be the same. So let's copy and paste our shark. I don't know if there's a vector crop here. There might be. I don't know where. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So you can do vector crop in Affinity Publisher if you'd like to crop out part of your vectors. You can do, I assume you can do, I haven't done it before, but let's see if it works. You can use one vector to mask another one. So there we go. So yeah, so it's quite similar in Affinity Publisher. Essentially, everything I just told you about Affinity Designer will work in Publisher as well. So that's kind of a crash course in masking. Like I said, the main differences to know are you have this concept of pixel-based masking, which you're probably going to use mostly in Affinity Photo or the pixel persona of Affinity Designer. And then you have the vector masking techniques, not to be confused with clipping masks. So certainly if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, but that's kind of a crash course in the masks. Like I said, there's advanced mask options. So check out my videos on those or the live stream from about a month ago. I think it was called Advanced Masks is what I called it, for the more advanced kind of techniques of masking based on luminosity, based on color, based on some other things. But this is the basics we talked about today. So hope that was useful. So certainly if you have any questions, you can leave a comment on the video or in the chat here. Let me just do some housekeeping here, close some files. How are we doing for time? 37, okay. So let's look at your questions here. And yeah, I forgot to address this. Actually, this is a question here about masks. I got this question, can you take a mask that was made in Affinity Photo and make a new mask in Affinity Designer and make a shape with it? So the thing about masks in Affinity Photo is that they're raster based. Which is to say they're a grid of pixels. And currently, to create a vector-based mask of it, you would need to take a image and convert it to a vector, which Affinity Designer and Affinity doesn't have any capability of doing that yet. So the answer is you can't make a vector shape with it unless you use some third-party tool. Like you could export your shape as a bitmap. You could export your mask as a bitmap and then just use some tool to make a vector out of it. Let me show you what you can do. So it would be a good example here. So if I did a new, it's like what you can do is if I created a mask that was just, I'll create a new pixel layer. Let's fill it with some color. And if I create a mask for it, I'll just paint some type of random mask. Black. So this is my mask. It's my attempt to spell. All right, so, and then if I go into Affinity Designer, if I have a new image, if I have a star here or some type of shape, let's make some shape. So if I take this mask, I'll do Control C. I'll go into Affinity Designer. And I'll do Control V. Like, yes, it can work. But as you can see, it's a raster-based effect. You can see the pixelization of the mask here because, like I said, the mask is a raster-based image. So that mask I just made, I can use it here in Affinity Designer. Can I create a vector of this with one click? Not really. I wonder if I did some type of Boolean operation. I'm not sure how that would work. It's not even giving me the option here. So yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally you can mask, but to get a nice clean vector mask, it's not actually going to work. I don't know of a way to do it. Again, it's just going to ultimately be a raster-based mask, and you would need to bring this into some vector conversion program to make a nice vector base out of this. So that's as far as I know the answer to that question. So Yukonica, glad it helped, and Muriel, thanks for joining. So I get this question sometimes, what do I like better, Affinity Designer or Photo? And this question was from Go Faster HD. He was saying he was doing some designs in Photo to make cover art and for a second screen. He was doing those kinds of things. And he's asking me which one do I like better. I generally prefer Designer because I think that one, it just has more of the options I use. I'm more vector based in what I do. But certainly if you're photo based, you're like working with lots of photographs. And I mean, if you're developing raw photos, like you need Photo for that. So for this type of use case here, yeah, I mean, if you're using a photo and you're like doing lots of stuff to it, like a lot of manipulation, like maybe you're using the liquefy persona and you want to do all this kind of perspective stuff, probably Photo would be good for that. But if it's just, just a photo and you're doing lots of text and lots of other vector stuff around it, it might be a better option to use Designer. It just kind of depends on which one you're doing more of. But personally, I'd use Designer more. So if you're reading a comment, could you do a nutshell of compound masks are and how they work? Sure. Let me bring up my file for that one. I'm trying to remember what week that was. I have a file that has a good demonstration of that topic there. Just give me a second. So I'll go to my videos. Hopefully I gave the folder a nice name like compound masks, yes. Yeah. So a compound mask, let me talk about the problem compound masks are solving. When you right click on this option here, this is Affinity Photo, by the way. This, as far as I don't think this is in a Designer. These are some of the advanced options I talked about. Compound mask is one of them. So what happens is, let's say I want to make a separate mask for each of these balls here. So I'll select the baseball. So baseball, and I made a mask. Thought I did. There I did. Cool. So I'll call this baseball mask. Let's turn it off. Let's say I'll make one for the basketball. So I have the basketball mask. Great. I have my basketball. And let's make one for the tennis ball. So I have my masks here. So if I turn on my tennis ball, I have just my tennis ball. If I turn on my baseball, just my baseball. And if I turn on my basketball, just my basketball. Now, what if I just want to show the three balls themselves without the background? Well, you may think, okay, let's just turn on all the masks. Well, if I turn on the tennis ball mask, I have the tennis ball. If I turn on the baseball mask, the tennis ball mask disappears. If I turn on the basketball mask, nothing shows either. And the reason that happens is because when you have these masks, at the top layer, the black part of all these masks, I'm trying to toggle between showing them, the black part is what is taking precedence, okay? So you can think of it as we have these three different masks here. And when I turn all of them on at the same time, the black part of each one is taking precedence. And the way we can get around that is we can make a compound mask, okay? So I'll right click on this and I'll say compound mask. And I'll put this somewhere there. So I can take my three masks, I can put them into the compound mask. And now they all show here. And the reason that happens is because with the compound mask, you can change the mode that the masks are added together in. So when I say add, what happens is if I look at my compound mask here, this is the end result. So what's happening is when it's putting the masks together, it's giving the white part of the masks priority. So they're all getting added together. So the final result of the compound mask is the sum of the white parts and all the child masks here. I could change that. Like by default, I could make it subtract, and I could make this subtract. And that you may want to do this sometimes, but I think usually a lot of times I'll do add. And what it's doing is, like I said, it's summing up. If you can see what's happening in here, it's kind of clear. So with add, our result is it's adding up the white spheres there. So we're getting our final result with the 3 spheres there. And that's kind of different from the default behavior when the masks are at the top layer. So let me know if that clarifies things for you. It's like I said, it's really useful when you have a bunch of masks and you want the white part to be what takes precedence. Because by default, that's not what happens. There's some other options here for intersect and XOR. That's kind of more advanced stuff. Really, probably most people like add is what they want to do there. So that's the compound masks. And like I said, if you want a slower talk on it, I have a video on it, and you can I have the live stream from about a month or so ago. So that's compound masks. Hope that helped. And from 1947, Marsha, I got this question about the assets panel video. She says she doesn't have the flat icons. Yeah, I think, and then she followed up and said she recently transferred her programs from one computer to another. Yeah, I think depending on what version you have, you may not see them. So what she's talking about is if you do window assets, by default, you get these demo assets here. And these are just kind of some nice things to use for, you know, there are a lot of like UI icons here and things like that. And they come by default, and some people don't see them. Like a couple years ago, they weren't included. It was a different version. It was like some iOS icons, and maybe this will change in the future. But I think if you've transferred computers, based on like where Affinity stores its settings and all that kind of stuff, like in your personal preferences, I guess, it's quite possible that when you transferred it, it might not have come over. So I'm not sure if there's a way to get them like for free from Affinity or something like that. Maybe just if you reinstalled the program on your current computer, maybe that would, if it downloaded it from the internet again from Affinity, it might have those icons there. So yes, that's I think that's why they might not be there. And that was the last question. So I'll give you guys another couple minutes. Let me know if you have any more questions. I'm kind of wondering next week's topic. Maybe I'll go through adjustment layers again. Not again, but on live stream for the first time. The adjustment layers, these are the options down here. I have a longer video on it, but I think perhaps maybe going over all of them on live stream might help. Or I was also thinking I might just limit it to actually like I might just do a description of levels and curves as like a basics introduction to things, because I think these are things also that are kind of a fundamental concept that could benefit people. So that's kind of what's on the agenda for next week. And as far as the Affinity 2.5 release, I don't know like exactly when it's going to come out yet. I haven't seen any updates lately, so I'm not sure when that will be released, but I'll make some videos on the new features when they come out. So yeah, so that's basically all I have for this week. I'll just give you guys another minute or so for if you have any follow-up questions. Like I said, masks, very important concept, so I would recommend understanding them. If you've been avoiding them, it's a good thing to learn. Like it's going to benefit so many different programs you use, not just Affinity. It's just a fundamental thing in everything. In fact, when I use Canva these days, it's on the rare occasion I use Canva, it's one of those things that frustrates me. I want masks to be there. I want blend modes to be there. It's just all these things that aren't there. Like that when you get used to working in these programs, it's tough to deal without them. But that's all I have for today. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment on this video. I'll answer them and perhaps review it in the next stream. Thanks for watching again, and I'll be on again next week. So thanks for watching, and see you next time. Have a good Sunday.